And then are you forwarding to Facebook Live too?
Facebook. It'll take a few minutes here. Page, there we go. Select page. Let's take one take. Can you go live or no? Only I can because I'm the host.
Is there a button that you click?
Yeah, the three buttons for more.
Record on this computer, chat, captions is all I have.
I can make you participants. Can I make you a host? Make you co-host.
Oh, breakout rooms, captions, chat, start focus mode. I still don't have the live.
You know why? Maybe because I'm recording. Maybe that's why, because I'm the one recording. Can you record two at the same time?
No, I can just stop recording.
Okay.
Or pause recording.
All right, so I'm going to share it to the Real Estate One Take Facebook page. Going live.
And I got a notification that it's been being live streamed.
Nice. All right, I think we are live streaming. Right. I can't watch myself here. All right, minimize. Okay. So welcome to Real Estate One Take. My name is David.
My name is Wilton.
We have we had to stop ourselves before we went live because we got pretty into two specific conversations, and I had a lot of questions for Will about the thing he wanted to talk about. But I want to start off with, as of September 1st, student loan payments are starting up again.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean for a huge amount of Americans who took out student loans to go to college and who have not been paying on those for 3 years? So let me just.
So specifically, these were federally insured loans. So this did not impact anybody with private loans. This was federally insured loans or state loans that had federal backing. But if they were private loans, then there was no pause on anybody with private loans. So in a large majority, and I know the ones that I had were a combination of private and federal backed loans.
A good point. I remember when I graduated college in 2010, I had a total of $25,000 in student loan debt, which, while not an insane amount of money, is more than I had as a broke brand new college graduate. I want to say most of that, yes, the majority of that was federal, and the minority was private. I do remember the private had a higher interest rate than the federal.
Right.
So I paid off the higher interest rate stuff first because that was going to cost me the most money to have, and it was a lower amount too, so it was a little bit easier. But anyway, so okay, I just want to read. This is from the Washington Post. I just Googled this. There's a ton of articles out there, but basically, weeks away from resumption of federal student loan payments, 4 million people have been enrolled. Well, that's another conversation. Have enrolled or have been enrolled in President Biden's new income-driven repayment plan that promises a lower monthly bill and a shorter path to loan forgiveness. A majority of these borrowers have been automatically switched to the saving on a valuable education plan, commonly known as SAVE, because they were enrolled in an older plan it is replacing, according to the department. Still, the federal agency said it has received nearly 1 million applications for the program since the soft launch of the online form July 30th. Everything we can to make sure that, okay, so have they enrolled or were they enrolled is the first question.
Yeah.
Sounds like maybe they didn't opt into it. Sounds like maybe good old federal government just shoved them into it, which is interesting. Let's see. Site plan is affordable borrowers. I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I think if I had a $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 a month monthly bill that I hadn't been paying for 3 years, and then all of a sudden that monthly bill was coming back, that would be a little bit of a shock to the system. And I think I want to transition this conversation. If you were in a situation where you find yourself with student loan debt, or you're still trying to navigate paying it off, I want to talk through kind of how my versus Will's attitude towards debt, because they differ just a little bit. I'm not quite 100% in the Dave Ramsey camp of as little debt as humanly possible, be weird and eat beans and rice for years on end. And I'm not quite there, but I'm not terribly far from that. I think that there can be appropriate uses of debt, particularly in business. It can be a really good way to leverage, to be able to draw on capital resources, and be able to pull money out to invest in certain things.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things, and maybe just some general examples, Will, of things that you've been able to leverage debt to help you with in business?
So I'm looking at new options, new avenues, but the things that we've been using, lines of credit against assets that we have. Mm-hmm. So real assets, and then someone will let you borrow against those assets, or some institution. A standard mortgage, right? Standard mortgage is how we bought our first Airbnb. If I had it to do over again, we would have cash out refinanced that specific property and bought our second property. The second one was also a standard mortgage.
You would have instead of selling, you bought the first property with a traditional 30-year mortgage. You sold it and then bought something else. You saying if you could go back, you would not sell it, but
I would not sell it. I would not have sold it. Absolutely not. So I'm constantly listening to the real estate investment gurus, right? There's tons of them on social channels. You've got the Chris Crones, and you've got the Mr. Burr, who's got the Burr method, and then you've got people like Grant Cardone, and he's mostly doing multifamily at this point. But there's still some folks doing single family. I want to shout out Michael Elefante. He's one of the guys that from an Airbnb side that I've learned a lot from. So I don't know if you know him, or I've stayed at one of his Airbnbs. Super cool guy, super great host. He has some really, really unique properties. We stayed at one in Nashville. So learned a lot from all of those guys together, and none of those guys know who I am, but we've leveraged the ability to carry additional mortgages to do renovations with. So we've done additional traditional mortgages to do renovation. We've done my business partner currently, we're doing a HELOC in order to do this renovation. So there's a lot of different types. The one that I'm super curious about right now is called DSCR. DSCR loan the acronym is debt service coverage ratio. Debt service coverage ratio. And what it does, it's basically a formula that lenders will use to decide how risky the loan is or not risky. Yeah, there you go, right there. It is the net operating income over the debt service, and that gets you your DSCR, or your debt service coverage ratio. Based on that coverage ratio, the bank will tell you how much they'd be willing to lend on a specific property. So this is one that I'm going to be investigating, just because we do hold a couple of mortgages already. And the more this type of loan, I don't know as much as I would like to know about it, but I know that DTI is less important on this type of loan than it is like on a traditional mortgage. Now, your interest rates are going to be a little bit higher. You're going to have to bring between 20 and 25% in most cases. But the goal for this, and this is sort of my take on debt, I'm willing to take on debt, any debt that has positive cash flow attached to it. So now any debt is risky, whether you have have a car loan, because as soon as you drive off a lot on a brand new car, it's worth 80% of what you just paid for it.
Yeah.
And that may be an exaggeration. In some cases, that's not an exaggeration at all. I mean, if you're driving a Lambo off the lot, right, you're probably looking at 20%, worth 20% less than what you just paid for it.
Yeah.
And it might be 12, 14 if you're buying Mercedes Benz or BMW or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
so I want to camp on this, because I want to all right, there's a lot happening here with this ratio, and
yeah.
I love a good formula. Let's start with, I have no idea what debt service means. I do know a little bit about net operating income. Let's talk about net operating income first. What is that?
So the net operating income, this is the amount, after all of your debts are paid, this is the amount of money left over that you get to keep.
So this is revenue. Can you see that when I'm typing?
Yeah, revenue minus overhead.
Expenses. Does that make sense, or should it be overhead? What do you think?
Well, expenses are overhead, right? And then your debt service is actually that monthly cost of that debt.
Right. So
what your payment is now. I'm not super familiar with DSCR loans. I don't know if this is done on like an annualized, or if it's done on a specific accounting period, whether that's a month or whether that's a quarter. But they're using
more compounding in every day, every moment. Yeah, who knows?
Right. Yeah. So I'm looking into this more and more, because, like I said, as we take on mortgages eventually, and being 1099 is a little harder. Being real estate experts comes with its own unique financing challenges. So, a couple years of
1099 income.
1099 income, yeah, before you can really even qualify for standard mortgages.
Yeah. So, okay. Camping on this for just a second more. Net operating income. Let's just take a property. Let's just say that, defining some terms here. Let's say that the net operating income from an Airbnb, say you buy a little townhouse or whatever, a little condo or house, and you figure out your vacancy rate, you figure out your nightly rate, you figure out your cleaning cost. And so this is net, not gross, right? So we're taking away the cost of the cleaning. We're taking away, if there's a water heater that goes bad, you got to put a new roof on it.
Right.
You got to paint it. You got to buy some furniture, right? There's some costs in there. You subtract that from your total revenue for, let's just say, a year, divide that by 12, right? That gives you your net operating income. I know that maybe that's super simplified, but I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that we're speaking the same language here.
And that would be on an annualized basis.
Yeah. So then you divide that by the monthly cost, or let's just say annual cost of carrying the debt. Now, cost of carrying the debt, my question on that would be, is that just the payment? Is that the interest rate? Is that there's probably
Yeah,
inflation?
that's one of the things that I'm, just still curious about. And even like, what are the debts? And this is where we may need to take an opportunity to invite a mortgage professional on.
I think I could see that
Or
coming in the near future.
a lending professional to come
Mhm.
on and talk to us a little bit, because this ratio, there's got to be limits, right? I mean, you've got to be able to, the goal of a DSCR loan for the bank is, I'm willing to lend you money because I'm expecting to make interest on that money. Okay. Now I need to do that at the lowest risk possible. So they're going to use these ratios to determine how risky is this lending. So if you're showing rent rolls in the area that are double the mortgage payment, then the risk is probably pretty low. And you're going to create some boundary as a lender. You're going to create some boundary to say, okay, in that ratio has to be a certain point where, from that point and greater, we're okay lending. We're going to lend on that property. If it is less than that, or if it's in some margin from that number, then it's too risky for us. We don't know that we're going to get it. And that's the whole point of checking your credit, verifying your income when you get a traditional mortgage, is the bank is looking at risk. They're saying, hey, I want to make money because you want to buy a house. I want to make sure that I'm going to consistently make money and I'm not going to end up with a house. Banks do not want banks, and that's something that's really, really important for everybody to know. Banks are not in the business of owning houses. That's why they want you to own it. You maintain it, you manage it, and there's regulations. If you get an FHA mortgage, you can't rent the property out. We want you, the person who signed off on the loan, to be the one responsible for repayment. And we want to know that you're the one that's living there. So at the end of it, banks are not interested in owning property. Not interested in owning property. They are interested in making money off the fact that you want to own property.
And look at what, I have like three thoughts going on in my head at one time. Look at what banks do. So they have limits, they have guidelines to what they're doing, they have guardrails that they put around their business because they know that they have to do that to run a successful business. You, as a business person, as a human being, you have to have some of those same principles. They don't have to be the exact same, but you have to have, my tolerance for risk is this. I want to get into this kind of business. Well, if you want to get into owning multiple properties, multifamily, whatever, you really need to have an understanding of the tools in front of you. Now, like any tool, it can be used for good or it can be used for bad. It can be used intelligently or it can be used stupidly. It is not the hammer's fault if I pick it up and whack myself in the foot with it. It's not. It's my fault because I didn't know how to use it or I made a bad decision.
That's a good. That's good.
It is not the 30-year mortgage's fault if I take it out and decide not to pay it. It's not the product's fault. I didn't understand what I was getting into. Something else happened that affected me.
Right.
And that's true of so much of this stuff. Now, are there predatory lending practices? Of course, that stuff happens. But the vast majority of it is, you just got to understand what it is that you're getting into. And as you do more research, so there's a principle of and this is a conversation that Will and I have had in the past of, at some point, you have measured, you have strategized, you have planned, you have researched, you have learned, and that is good and critical. But at some point, man, you just got to jump. At some point, you're not going to have all the variables in front of you. You're never going to know 100% of the pieces of information. There's always going to be some unknowns to it.
Yep.
at some point, like, you just got to take the leap, man. You just got to take the leap, and taking the leap will give you the rest. Like, the only way you can get the rest of the information that you need is by taking the leap. You know, put yourself in a situation where you have no other choice. You have to figure it out. Like, I just gotta, I'm gonna go buy my first flip or whatever. Well, do I know a contractor? Well, I better go find one, because I'm about to own a house that I got to work on.
Yep. Hey, release the screen share there.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. So there is a set of guidelines that we as business owners have to follow, right? We've got to know. I mean, we talked about this in our sales meeting this week. Actually, we have to know the formula for over a long period of time. What is the formula for success? And we've got folks in our business who are watching our business. They're watching the successes. They're watching the conversions. They're watching the closings, and they're feeding back information to us to say, hey, based on what we know about what you actually did, the money that was actually made, and the path to get to that money that was actually made, this is what we, as a company, this is what we have to accomplish. And the proof is in the actual data.
Yeah.
You know, they created a formula off of empirical data, and empirical data just means like it actually happened. It's factual stuff. So we want to make those decisions. We want to do the things that make money, and we want to do those things at the rates that have in the past proven for us to make money. So the bank's doing the same thing. The bank is looking at risk, their risk in lending a certain amount of money on a certain property given a certain value to a certain person, and they're going to give you a value, a risk value, basically, and they're going to evaluate on that. And so they set up guardrails. As business owners, we have to set up guardrails. I mean, when we go and buy a property, we have to know that we have to know approximately how long it takes to do the work. We have to know approximately what the property is going to sell for. And we have to know what our daily cost of ownership is. And I'm telling you, like, I got my kicking boots on right now on a couple of these, because I know that every day that we can't close costs us money.
Got you kicking boots. What does that mean? Get ready to kick sand?
I got my kicking boots on. I mean, I'm ready to, I'm suited up, ready to kick some butt. Like folks that like, when we put the dates on paper, like, you better show up. If you don't show up, I'm probably going to come find you.
It's going to be bad for everybody involved.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is, you know, we do business with people who understand when we put timelines on paper, or when we put timelines in text, like, that's the expectation. If you can't achieve that, then we're done. We're done here. Because there are lots of people that want consistent business that will step up to the plate and meet the deadlines. And the other important thing is not to overpromise and underdeliver.
Yeah.
You know, we want underpromising and over-delivering. That's what helps us make money. And when we make money, then, you know, of course, we're treating our suppliers right. So
I would guess the only way to solidly know whether or not you are over or under promising is just experience.
it's experience.
What's realistic? I don't know.
It's exactly what it is. It's experience.
What can I commit to? What can this contractor, how much can they handle? Can they really do this in 6 weeks? Is it really possible to me to help this buyer find a house in XYZ price range and ABC location?
Yep.
Yes or no? Yes or no? Is it realistic to expect to sell this house in this price range in this location for the amount of money in the span of time that the seller wants it to happen? Well, what does experience tell you? And if you don't know, you don't know. It's just a wag. which is short for a wild booty guess.
I like that. It's a swag.
It's just a wag. All right, so I want to head back to debt as a tool.
Yeah. So debt is a tool. I think for me, I am open to any and all debt that has the strong potential for cash flow.
What is cash flow? Let's define that.
Cash flow is, does it make more per period, per whatever accounting period you're using? Does it make more money than it costs me?
Does it make more money than it costs me? All right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've toyed with the idea of, there's a guy actually down the street here. Shout out to Rico. Rico is actually, he has like a limousine, like a limousine and courier type service, and he is using Turo to manage that.
Nice.
So he's bought some really nice, but low expense cars. So he's buying Toyota, and he's buying newer Toyotas, and he's leasing those on Turo.
Yeah.
And I've kicked around that idea. I think it's a little more hands-on than what I'm used to. Because short-term rental, you find good partners, and short-term rental it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It really is a no-brainer. If you have a good location, you've thought it out. Like, I know people that do well with houses out in the boonies.
Sure.
That scares me a little bit, because I'm very used to 60, 70, 80% occupancy.
And
And
out you get 30, 40%, or
and you just don't know. That's just, if I got a month that was 30 or 40%, then I'd be, it scared me a little bit.
you can only do so many of those kinds of months. I get it. I know.
Yeah.
I get it.
Right. So, good location, prices are crazy on the Airbnb side, because you have to think about the debt service. The debt service is a big thing right now. So debt service is going to lower your cash flow. So if you're buying property with high debt service, then your cash flow numbers are going to be lower, which means that your monthly prices, your nightly rates, and then your monthly gross needs to be significantly higher for you to make a decent amount of money. And that means that it's got to be in really, really good locations. So we've talked about how we use debt. And what in your past, what do you think is, how do you use debt?
Yeah, I mean, I've student loans was my first real experience with any significant kind of debt, and those, good and bad. There's arguments to be made on both sides of that. Wouldn't have graduated from college without them, so I guess it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
Outside of just your standard buying houses, I have invested in my business on a regular basis and I tend to pay it off every month, but I do maintain some business debt on a regular basis. It's not a huge amount. This is like, again, if Dave Ramsey side is a 10, no debt ever, I'm like at a 7 or 8, right? So it ain't much, and it's a little bit of an experiment, but I'm maintaining it. It's cash flowing right now. So just for me, I'm spending money on lead sources. I have a monthly ad spend that I do as part of my marketing plan. And so that it was a trade-off of both my wife and I's cars are paid off, right? And my car is perfectly functional, not a thing wrong with it. It is nice. It gets everybody everywhere they need to go. Looks good. I take care of it, but it is 3 years away from being considered a classic car. It's almost 25 years old. And so, I get the itch about once a year that, man, I'd really like a new truck. Man, that new F-150 Lightning's coming out. Oh man, that thing looks so cool. You can run your whole house off that thing like a generator. It's so cool. And I get that itch. And so just for me, the way that I have been able to justify that is I say, okay, the payment on that would be, several $100s a month. Well, that is a depreciating asset that does not cash flow. Great example. That is an investment that does not make money. You are throwing money out the window.
Yeah, unless you're planning on doing something like Turo.
Unless you plan on doing something like Turo. And I want to talk about that, but we'll get there.
Yeah, and then the numbers you have to pay attention to everything. Every piece of rubber that you put underneath that thing, every oil change that you do,
I want to come back to that because I have questions about that. All right. So I said I could buy this new car or, recently used whatever. I can have a car payment and I could spend several $100s a month on a depreciating asset, something that doesn't make money. Or how about this for an idea, David? And my wonderful wife was wonderful enough and she's intelligent and she suggested this. She said, what if you took that money and put that same amount of money, keep your car, it's perfectly fine, it's functional, take that roughly the same amount of money and put that back into your business. And I was like, baby, now you are talking. Now you are talking. That's a smart lady. That's a smart lady. And so that's what I'm doing. Now it's not a gigantic amount of money. Typically what happens with any business is the reinvestment grows as the business grows. So this year it's going to be X amount. I'm going to do some planning at the end of this year for how much I want that to look like next year. I'm doing some planning right now. Actually, I was on a Zoom call this morning having the conversation of what do I want my marketing budget, the ad spend to look like for the next year? Do I want to increase it by 10, 15, 20%, whatever? Well, it depends on what the interest rates do. It depends on what I expect my revenue to look like. There's some variables there. So that's some debt that's some debt that I am okay hanging. And so what do I do with that? I put that on a credit card and I pay that credit card off or dang near off at the end of every month. Now I know that not everybody has the ability, I guess I'll use the word discipline, has the discipline or financial ability or can plan it right to be able to pay a credit card off every month. There's, $1 trillion or whatever in credit card. What is the total credit card debt right now? I'm curious. To the Google machine.
Yeah, I was thinking it was like just crossed the $1 trillion mark or something.
It's the combined total credit card debt.
While he's looking that up, if you are seeing us on Facebook, can you comment a thumbs up? That would just help us know that people can actually see it. If you are enjoying listening to us, just carry on about everything real estate and lending and or if there's something that you really want to know more about, type that in the comments here because we're starting to organize some things, invite some experts in specific areas. We want to know what you guys want to hear. So
also, if you disagree with us, go to the comments. If you think that my face is stupid, don't say that in the comments because that would hurt my feelings. But I'm saying if you disagree with us, that's okay with that too.
Well, put us on blast in an email. We love reading angry emails.
I love it. It's one of my favorite pastimes. So, all right. As of August 8th, 2023, total U.S. Credit card debt surpassed $1 trillion. $1 trillion. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of flipping money.
That's not even a real number. That's like, you might as well just say you might as well just pull up the scene from Austin Powers and do 1 billion trillion gabillion zillion.
That's how many? Is that 1,000 billions?
That's $1,000 billion.
$1,000 billion. That's not a sustainable number. I feel like. What's the national debt right now? What's the
38 trillion or something?
US national debt. Let's see. Where's the debt clock? Have you guys? Oh, so if you want something, interesting, go to Truth and Account or look up National Debt Clock. And I'll share my screen. There it is.
No, but there's this one too that's got usdebtclock.org has got defense budget spending. It's got GDP. This is scary.
What am I looking at right now? Look at this.
It's bananas, man.
So,
oh
okay.
my gosh.
And in the top left up here, you can do by state. We're spending some time on this. You can do by state. Okay. U.S. national debt is $32 trillion. That is $98,000 per citizen. And that's $254,000 per taxpayer.
I love that difference. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
That means that there are so few, there's so many people, and there's only a percentage of them that are actually paying taxes. Oh my gosh, that is so scary.
Federal tax revenue. So, all right, here's the debt, and here's the federal tax revenue is $4 trillion, $13,355 per citizen. That's a really low number. What's the revenue? Total state revenue, state debt per citizen, corporate tax. Okay.
I can tell you, I wrote a check bigger than that for my taxes last year.
Yeah. Let's go to the state.
Somebody's not paying something.
Somebody ain't paying there. Okay. South Carolina, here we go. Let's give it a second here. All right. 5.3 million people, 53,000 unemployed, that many food stamp recipients. GDP, the debt is 41 billion. Is that right?
Debt 41, 60, yeah, 41 billion.
41 billion. That's South Carolina's debt is more than I thought. That's interesting. The revenue is 31 billion. The spending is 63. I won't even talk about the national debt, but Will, if you ran your house at a deficit of 30 some odd, at a deficit percentage, that's almost half. If you spent more in a year, 50% more than you made in a year, how long would your,
we would be best friends with the repo man. He would be on our Christmas card list.
the exact same situation. Okay, let's go back to the national here.
He'd be on my speed dial.
He'd be on your speed dial. So, there's a larger conversation. My point is, not everybody has a healthy relationship with debt. That's the point I was trying to make. And not everybody can use the tool in a way that is advantageous to them, because these tools, and particularly the credit cards, are designed to make people money, not designed to make the credit card companies and the banks money, not designed to help you do anything other than put money, give them your money.
Right.
So that being said, I know there's a lot of negative stigma around it, but I have found a way that works pretty well for me. God, those numbers are crazy. Gosh, those numbers are crazy.
I know. It's, I feel like we just, it deserves a moment of silence for just to clear the air.
Let me share my screen again. Moment of silence for the national debt. Okay, that's it.
Oh man.
So I do think something that has been a real nugget for me that if I could share with people is think hard what you are spending money on. Think hard what your monthly expenses are. How much you paying for Netflix? How much you paying for HBO? How much you paying for Hulu? What's gym subscriptions? All this, cell phone bills, home internet, all the monthly things that hit you. And those things can add up like 5, 10, 20, 50, $100 here adds up so dang quickly. Whereas if you take that same $200, $300, $400, $500, $600 a month and throw it into even a minimally productive interest bearing account,
Dude, CDs, right? That's a great segue, dude. CDs are like over 5% on a 30-day CD.
CD. How do you, did I just Google CD bond rates or what do I Google here?
Yeah, I mean, CD is short for certificate of deposit, but I don't know, CD rates. Right there, bank up to 5.65. Whew.
Really good.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But that's a good kind of segue into interest, the whole interest rate conversation.
yeah, it is.
So we did at our local real estate, our local realtor board. We just had a panel of lenders, and they were all in pretty well agreement on the same thing. We will probably see one more bump on the national, the prime rate, one more little twist on that rate up, because inflation is still at 3%. So their goal is to get inflation to 2%. But when that happens, then inflation comes back to 2%. Then over time, there are a lot of experts that are saying that we're going to start to see a slow step back in the right direction with interest rates starting to come down. Okay. So the question is to you, Dave, what happens when all the people who are angry and scared that they didn't get to 3% interest rate now are watching the rates bump on 8%, and then they start to fall into the low 7s? What's going to happen?
Well, I hope they're going to come out of the woodworks.
Most everybody says there is going to be a mad dash for people to scoop up homes, and it's going to be a second bump in that rush to home ownership.
Yeah,
because everybody is watching them tick up, and because everybody, and if you don't know, I'm going to spend 10 seconds to explain it to you. Your interest rate is the amount of money that you're going to pay to the bank for them allowing you to borrow the money to buy the house in the first place. So your payment is made up of a portion of it is the principal, which is the amount that you paid for the house, divided up over 330 years times 12, carry the 360 payments. All right.
Did you carry the 1? That's impressive.
Yeah, I just carried the 1 right there in my head.
Right there. It happened.
And so a portion of it is going to be the principal, and a portion of it is going to be interest. So if you can imagine, you can afford a monthly payment of, your income is probably not changing 7 or 8 times during the year, like the mortgage interest rates are. So they're going to say you can qualify for a payment of, let's just throw a number out here, $2,000 a month, based on the debt that you already have, based on how well you repay debt, which is going to be your credit score. Then you're allowed to borrow $2,000 per month. Okay. As rates tick up, what happens to the amount of principal? The amount of principal goes down that you're going to pay per month, which means that the total home price that you can purchase is going to go down. But the opposite thing happens when those rates start to come down, is you start leaving more room in there to buy more house.
Yep.
So now all of a sudden, people who were shopping in the 200s are now, I can shop in the 218 range now. Or, now I can shop in the 225 range now. The people that were, ready to throw in the towel because they couldn't buy anything above 200 are now back above 200 if those rates sink like they say they're going to. And there's going to be, now measurable, we don't know without a crystal ball, right? Do we even know that the rates are actually going to start to step down? No, that's just what the experts are saying. This is all just predicting market cycles. It's really all it is.
I would be shocked if they didn't drop at least at least minimally, if for no other reason than there's an election coming up next year.
Mhm.
I think it's highly likely that come around springtime, we'll start to see those come back down. Now, I think the only thing with that, though, is in order for them to see the results they need for the inflation to reduce, how high are they going to have to go up in between now and then?
Yeah. Well, we're back to 3%. So they're thinking only one more knob twist, right?
Yeah.
And we'll be done.
Hmm.
Right. But it was down. It took us 16 months or something of rate increases to get us down from 9% down to like 3%.
All right.
Where we are now.
Basic economic theory. Why did inflation get so crazy?
Because we pumped fake money into the economy. Through all the COVID stimulus, we turned off faucets that were pumping real money, and we replaced it with a bunch of fake money. So if we can boilerplate this whole thing down, your dollar bill, I was looking for a dollar bill. I don't know why I was just doing that. I don't have random dollar bills sitting on my desk, but your dollar bill is worth less than it was this time last year. And it's because when you pump fake money in, I mean, if you think about it, if the money comes out of nowhere, right? If I just in your bank account, if I just start flooding your bank account with money that looks like it's real money, right? Then and you do that for everybody's bank account, then at a certain point, the stuff that you purchase, it's going to cost you more of those dollars because each dollar is worth less. And that is just that's the simplest way I can describe inflation.
It's basic economics. Like as the supply of money increases, the value of any one particular item, and this is supply and demand in general, right? As the supply of any one item increases, the value of that particular of any one of those items goes down. It was just interesting to see because I'm sure you took economics classes or finance or whatever, and they talked about it, and it's like, and thankfully we're not like Soviet Russia with bread lines and having to carry around sacks of cash.
Yeah.
But you can see it. You can see how it could spiral. You can see how it could spiral very quickly.
Yeah. And the other thing that really was a shock to the system too is when you go to a bank and you can't take out, like you and 15 of your closest friends can't all clear out your bank accounts at the same time.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty shocking.
Did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah. That was when all of the rumors of bank collapses and people were standing out in the street like, hey, why are you here? Well, I'm here to take all my cash out of here. And then when people all get together and you can't take everybody can't take their cash out at the same time, it's a little scary. Like everybody's saying, well, we're never going to get to full digital currency. The US dollar is pretty doggone digital.
It's going that way. It'll happen. It might be, it's not gonna be tomorrow. It's probably not next year, but it's gonna happen.
Yeah. It's pretty digital. I mean, when you can go on Amazon and swipe your card, whether it's your debit card or whether it's a credit card, like we're pretty darn close to digital already. I think about how often I use cash.
Almost never.
I mean, I'll on like one hand, I can count the purposes that I've actually used cash for let's say in the last 30 days, what I've actually used cash for.
And I bet if you were honest with yourself, maybe not for you, but for me, and I feel like a lot of people maybe watching, listening, whatever, when you had to use cash, you were probably annoyed. Like you went into some restaurant and it's like, there's a restaurant.
It's 2023. You don't take it.
I took Jen to lunch and there's this restaurant and it's a really cool restaurant. It's called the Wagon Wheel in Richburg. Very cool, very good. But there's a big giant sign, we only accept cash. I'm just like, and it's who cares? There's ATM right there. It's not a big deal. It's just the convenience of it.
Yeah.
I want to wrap up with a mindset conversation about, all right, I cannot control market conditions. I cannot control interest rates. I cannot control inflation. Those are real things. Obviously, we talked about it. Those are real variables. Those are real factors. What I can control is what I do and how I position myself and how I position my business to be. And I want to do things that position myself and my business to take advantage of market conditions and to catch the wave instead of having the wave roll over the top of me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So how can I move my boat? How can I position myself to take advantage of what's happening? Right. So if this interest rates are going to go up in the winter and then come back down in the spring, then okay, and buyers are going to come out of the woodworks. That means that sellers are going to need to come out of the woodworks too. So I should maybe be focusing on some seller marketing Q4, Q1.
Yeah.
You know, be having these conversations with sellers now, be talking to buyers now, maybe make real good friends with some new construction folks. Start to build some of those relationships.
Well, and the other thing too is I want to ease. I want to create a sense of urgency for the people who have not yet pulled the trigger. The people, and I'm going to speak directly to the camera here because I feel like the whole time I'm like looking just a hair down at you, but I'm going to speak directly to the camera here this time. Okay. There are people right now that whether you're listening to my voice or maybe this thing just hasn't caught on and you will never hear my voice, and that's okay too. There are people that are looking at the screen right now and you're thinking, I'm kicking myself for not buying in the 2.99, 3.25% era. Okay. Stop using your energy to kick yourself. Listen to what we're saying. The people who were losing to the cash offers last year are going to lose again next year when the buyers start to flood the market. The rates start to tick down just a hair and the buyers start flooding the market. Those people are going to get left behind again. There's only going to be one winner for each of those houses. Only going to be one winner for each of those houses. I want it to be you, but the best thing that you can do is to buy before it gets crazy. Buy before it gets crazy. Do not wait until next year whenever it's crazy and then you're kicking yourself again. Well, the rates got back down in the low 7s and high 6s and now I'm kicking myself again. Buy now and then you can, if it makes sense for you, after 6 months you can refinance.
Yeah.
So run and find an agent now. I'm telling you, otherwise you're going to be kicking yourself again.
Best time to buy was 3 years ago. That's always the case. When was the best time to buy a house? 3 years ago, 5 years ago. And that's going to be true 6 months from now. Best time to buy a house was you should have already bought it because you'd be building equity and you can refinance. It's not that big of a deal.
Exactly.
It's not that big of a deal. I want to demystify. I want to demystify the process for people. That's part of the reason why I'm talking about some of these stuff as tools. And people don't want to use debt because they're afraid of it because they've done it wrong. They've seen family members do it wrong. They hear it. They hear you talk about it, and all that's real. Oh, it's 100% real. So let's just kind of pull some of the veil out from the top of it for a second. It's just not that complex of a thing. If you just take some time, if you have a good advisor, if you have somebody who understands it and can kind of point you in the right direction, it's just not something to be afraid of. It's not.
Right.
All right. Any final thoughts?
My final thoughts would be, take care of your financial situation. Understand what's coming in, understand what's going out, understand where you're spending, and challenge yourself. Like David said earlier, like challenge yourself. What can I do with this? Do I need to buy blank? Is it going to make me money in the long run? If you've got extra, then splurge, do whatever you want, right? But if you're really toying with that fun purchase or maybe potentially home ownership, I would say that the home ownership piece is the income property piece, anything cash flowing piece is going to set you up to be able to do lots more of this down the road, lots and lots and lots more of this down the road. Right. So you can take this now, or you can take this times 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road, because you did this. So that would be
delayed gratification, man. It's delayed. If you can, just a little bit of delayed gratification can go a long way.
Yeah.
Can go a long way. All right. I'm gonna
email.
Our email is RE1T@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at Real Estate One Take. We're not on Instagram yet, but Facebook and email. Email us if you got questions. If you want to argue with me, if you want to tell me why you think I'm wrong and why you think I need to shave my beard, you can tell me. I may not answer you, but I will read it. If you want to tell Will that he needs to grow a bigger beard, I don't know if he can help you with that, but
I don't think I can. It's all gapped up in the middle here. So I'm doing my best, man.
See you next time.
Yeah, we'll see you guys. Thank you for joining us.